Welcome to Author Talk at CBS News. I'm Jeff Glor, joined today by Guy Lawson, author of Sam Israel, The Secret Market and Wall Street's Wildest Con. Guy, welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
We wanted to talk about hockey this entire time.
We did.
As a Canadian and a Buffalonian, but I think we're going to deal with the book first.
As a Leaf fan, that's kind of enough said.
Exactly. So let's talk about Sam Israel, who's had even more problems than the Leafs have had in recent times.
Similar.
Who is Sam Israel?
Sam Israel is the son of a very prominent commodity trading family out of New Orleans and then New York. Really legendary family that started in the 1890s and became billionaires. Lloyd Blankfein worked for the family company. Goldman Sachs bought, really a hot, prominent family. So he's the son of a man who's friends with Alan Greenspan, Sandy Weill, Larry Tisch, really prominent Westchester family. Grew up amongst privileged people and then, went to Wall Street to be a trader. He didn't want to go into the family business. He wanted to be his own man. And by the time he got to Wall Street when he was 18, he fell in with these kind of a gang of guys, or particularly one guy that knew how to work the market like nobody before or since, really. I mean, he was a great insider trader, front runner, scammer.
Who was that guy?
His name was Freddie Graeber. By the time Sam's 21, he's running buckets of, satchels of cash up and down to airports for the Swiss bank accounts and really being taught that anybody with really smart guys are cheating. And so he was brought into this culture. So obviously
He's a Wall Street mafia guy.
There's wise guys and there's smart guys. And as Sam says in the book, it's barely a pimple on the derriere of an elephant, what the mob was doing compared to what Wall Street's up to. That's not to say that everyone on Wall Street's cheating, because obviously they're not, but there is a group of people and there is a kind of a culture of getting over, getting ahead, having an edge.
So Sam, he ran the Bayou Fund, the now disgraced Bayou Fund. Sam Israel is now in prison.
Doing 20
years. What exactly was the Bayou Fund doing that was illegal?
Sam started his own fund in the mid-90s with $1 million. In the first year, he lost a little, $100,000. But it was the boom market, so losing anything would be death. So he fudged the numbers, played for time, a little white lie the first year. By the second year, he was down $400,000 or $500,000 on $2 million. And so he just started to cheat. So he basically made up an auditing firm and invented results. So by the time he got to 2004, he'd invented effectively $300 million in profit, and he had a $450 million fund, but really it was $150 million in cash. So Bernard Madoff...
It was Madoff-esque.
Well, no, but this is the difference, and it's a huge difference, night and day. Bernard Madoff just sat there waiting to get caught. Didn't do anything. Kind of like a crocodile sitting by a river, if you ask me, eating. Sam was always trying to trade his way out of it. He was trying to solve his problem, make himself whole, make the Bayou's investors whole. And he created this persona. And at the same time, he was trading. And so it was in this search to save himself that he, in fact, got conned.
Who was he conning? Who was giving him money?
Well, that's just it. Some of the most prominent Wall Street fund of funds and the Wilpon family. Here's a good irony for you. A lot of people who had money in Madoff put money into Bayou and Sam Israel to diversify away from the risk. So they kind of doubled down without
diversification.
But the thing is that they both, Israel and Madoff, independently came up with a story which was 18% returns year on year, which was kind of irresistible. So it was smart, sophisticated people, and Sam had a persona, as kind of like a crazy, half crazy, likable, unpretentious guy, sort of a Louisiana figure. At the same time as he came from this wealthy family. So it was a pretty compelling story he had. How
much did Sam swindle them out of?
Well, you'd say $300 million because that's made up money. In real money, an investment in Bayou at the time of the global financial crisis, it would have beat the S&P, even with all the stealing.
Really?
The stock market was that frothy through the last decade.
So a lot of people, the first time they heard Sam Israel's name was when this insane faked suicide incident came up a couple years ago, which was 2008.
Yeah.
I remember actually traveling to the bridge where he apparently did this, but he was a wanted man. Tell me what happened. He faked his suicide. Why?
The judge gave him a couple weeks to get his affairs in order after sentencing him to 20 years. Sam was so politically connected through various people that he thought that he might be able to get President Bush to commute it or at least lessen the sentence. And when that didn't happen, as it was never going to happen, he panicked. And so he left his car in the middle of Bear Mountain Bridge with the words, "Suicide is painless" on the side, and hit the road. And in fact, he'd gotten away. He was gone. The marshals had no clue where he was. He turned himself in the end, actually after attempting suicide, because he was destroying his girlfriend's life. They'd arrested her and charged her with aiding and abetting.
And that's still what he says he regrets the most.
Yeah.
Is involving his girlfriend.
Yeah. I think when you go to
this.
prison and you lose these contacts, keeping people that you love in your life is maybe the most important thing.
You said when you wrote this book, when you set out to write it, you thought you were writing one story and you ended up in part writing another. What does that mean?
So I went to see him in September of 2008, sat down with him in prison. There he is in his yellow prison outfit with his hand broken from a fight in prison. He's obviously doing tough time already. But he doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about Bayou. He keeps telling me there's a secret market. And he starts diagramming how the Federal Reserve is cheating and running a Ponzi scheme. And I just thought it sounded nuts, So I went back 3 and 4 times, and then the global financial crisis hit. And I thought, man, do you remember that feeling of like there's just, what is going on here? So that's when I began to investigate it. And the strange thing about it was, from my point of view, is the crazier it sounded, the truer it got, at least by suggestion.
Is this through the loans the Fed was giving?
This is printing money, quantitative easing.
Right.
Just handing out money and pumping money into the stock market secretly and just really inflating.
Because they weren't releasing the names of the banks that they were helping.
Or what they were really doing. Still don't. He'll tell you it's basically, it's what he was doing, but just on this grandest scale. I mean, look at this London bank interest rates fixing scam. Yep. Or look at, where Chase is trying to hide its losses on these trades. These are all similar kinds of cultural things, trying to hide your loss for a little bit, don't admit it, having secret confabs. Today, the front page of the New York Times is about how hedge funds get information ahead of the market, as if that's news. That is like, this book is like a compendium of how to cheat, really. Like there's nobody who learned more about cheating than Sam Israel. So when he got cheated, the irony of all that really is that the more you cheat, the more prone you are to being cheated.
And how much does he believe things have changed since the financial meltdown in 2007, 2008?
I don't think he thinks they've changed at all. I think that he feels like there's a lot more scammers to be revealed and that people are being fooled a lot more by their investment advisors than they imagine. And I think he thinks that the Federal Reserve continues to operate this effectively a fiat currency and a Ponzi scheme. As long as nobody can question their authority, it'll never get called.
You came to sympathize a little bit with what Sam went through.
Yeah. I mean, he did a lot of heinous things and a lot of things that were pretty personal to people. Things that I know that he's ashamed of, but that are really pretty unforgivable. He deserves to be in prison, there's no question. I don't know about the 20. Like you said, I'm Canadian, so.
Forgive and forget. Not completely forgive or completely forget. Your next book, I was intrigued when I read a little bit about that. Tell me about it.
It's about 3 kids from Miami Beach. 2 kids, really. There's another guy that gets involved who, kind of like expert online bidders on federal contracts, who land a $300 million contract to supply arms to the Afghani National Army. So these 2 stoner dudes, wake and bake guys, 19 and 22, wind up with probably the central part of America's foreign policy in the war on terror. And, it's the story of bongs and bullets.
Afghan arms trade always seemed to be one of the more transparent
right.
and easily understandable
it involves Albania,
businesses,
Swiss arms dealers, and people going to prison. So it's a pretty neat story.
Finally, I should ask you, although I feel a little bit bad asking about this on camera, why is it that your beloved Maple Leafs cannot rise further to the top?
There was a guy named Harold Ballard. You want the short or the long answer? The short answer is,
we've got time.
Harold Ballard bought the team in 1967, and he was an evil man. An evil man. The shorter answer to that, though, is that they make so much money out of that team, win, lose, or draw, that there's kind of no incentive. It's like good money after bad. So you need an eccentric guy like Steinbrenner to see like the bigger value. It's much like the Yankees. They have the TV contracts, and so the Yankees could effectively, in a way, make more money, but the bigger interest, of course, is to win. I also think that the league is diluted. Talent's pretty diluted.
Yeah. If you had to bet, and we're not betting,
yeah,
of course, given the subject matter of this interview, do they win a championship in the next 10 years?
Not in my lifetime. I'm beginning to...
Not in your lifetime.
If I say that, then maybe it'll happen. But
why don't you write a book about the Leafs?
I tried out for the Rangers. I did a story for GQ, and that taught me a little humility. But I actually think the Rangers are going to be good this year.
They were good last year.
I know, but I think they might have something.
Yeah.
But I might even become a Rangers fan. See, I can't even say it.
Well, you're allowed to have one American and one Canadian team, I think. Is that?
I'm Canadian.
I would prefer you pick the Sabres if you're going to take an American team.
I would prefer to pick a winning team.
Wow. Guy Lawson, a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you for
totally.
coming in. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Awesome.
You've been watching Author Talk at CBS News.